There is a specific number in your bank account that changes the laws of physics for your money. Before you reach this number, you are pushing a boulder uphill. Every inch of progress requires your sweat, your labor, and your time. If you stop pushing for even a moment, the boulder rolls back down and crushes your progress. But after you cross this specific number, the physics flip. The hill flattens out, and then it begins to slope downward. Suddenly, the boulder is rolling by itself. It picks up speed, it gathers weight, and for the first time in your life, you are not pushing the money is pulling you. This moment is called the activation point, and almost nobody talks about it because the financial industry wants you to believe that wealth is a smooth, straight line. They want you to think that saving your first $10,000 feels the same as saving your 10th million. But that is a lie. The math of survival is completely different from the math of wealth. And today, we are going to break down exactly how to reach that activation point. Because once you do, poverty becomes not just unlikely, it becomes mathematically impossible. If you have ever felt like you are working hard but staying in the exact same place, it is not because you're bad with money. It is not because you're unlucky. It is because you are stuck in the gravity well that exists before the activation point. You're trying to build momentum in a system designed to keep you stationary. But the wealthy know something you don't. They know that wealth is mechanical. It is not a lottery ticket, it is an engine. And like any engine, it has an ignition switch. So, let's strip away the noise and look at the raw mechanics of your first $100,000. Why 100,000? It sounds like an arbitrary round number, but it isn't. It is the mathematical threshold where compound interest finally becomes strong enough to rival a human being. Think about it this way. If you have $1,000 invested and the market returns 10%, you made $100. That's nice, but it changes nothing. It doesn't pay a bill, it doesn't buy you freedom, it doesn't even buy you a nice dinner. You cannot feel it. But when you cross $100,000, that same 10% return is $10,000. Now pause and think about what $10,000 actually represents. For many people working minimum wage or part-time jobs, $10,000 is an entire year of labor. It is hundreds of hours waking up early, commuting, dealing with a boss, and trading life for cash. When your account generates $10,000 on its own, you have essentially hired a part-time employee who works for free. This employee never sleeps, never complains, never takes a sick day, and most importantly, never asks for a raise. They just quietly add value to your life in the background.
This is the shift. This is the moment the boulder starts rolling on its own. Your money is no longer a stored battery, it is a generator. But the problem is getting there. The journey from 0 to 100,000 is the hardest financial journey you will ever take. It is lonely, it is boring, and it feels incredibly slow. Most people quit during this phase. They save for a few months, they see the balance grow slowly, and they get discouraged. They look at the boulder and it hasn't moved, so they spend the money on a car or a vacation, or something that gives them a feeling of progress, because the account balance isn't giving them that dopamine hit. This is why you need a strategy that is not based on willpower. Willpower is a battery that runs out. You need a system that runs on mechanics. The first mechanic is what we call the 3-month wall. Before you can even think about the activation point, you must build a wall between you and the chaos of life. Most people live in a state of fragility. If the car breaks down or a medical bill arrives, they have to borrow money to fix it. This sends them backward. They're constantly taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back. You cannot build wealth on a shaky foundation. You need 3 months of baseline expenses sitting in a boring savings account. This money is not for investing. It is not for a holiday. It is a shock absorber. When you have 3 months of expenses saved, you change biologically. Your cortisol levels drop. You stop making panic decisions. You stop taking the first job offer because you are desperate. You start thinking with logic instead of fear. This clarity is the first dividend of wealth, and it pays you long before the interest rates do. Once the wall is built, you must turn your attention to the silent enemies. We are often told that the way to get rich is to stop buying coffee or to reuse tea bags. This is frugal, but it is not strategic. Strategic frugality is about stopping the leaks that are draining thousands of dollars from you without you noticing. I am talking about fees, investment fees, account maintenance fees, late fees, high-interest debt. A 1% fee on an investment portfolio sounds small, but over 30 years, that 1% can consume nearly 1/3 of your potential wealth. It is a hole in the bottom of your bucket. You can pour as much water in as you want, but if the hole is there, you will never fill it. The wealthy are obsessed with tax efficiency and fee reduction. They know that $1 saved in fees is worth more than $1 earned in income, because the saved dollar is tax-free and risk-free.
This brings us to the accelerator. If you want to hit the activation point in 3 years instead of 10, you cannot just save what is left over at the end of the month, because usually there's nothing left over. You must automate the process. You need to set up a system where 20% of your income leaves your account the moment it arrives. It disappears into your investment account before you have the emotional urge to spend it. This is called paying yourself first, but I want you to look at it differently. Imagine you are paying a tax. When the government takes taxes from your paycheck, you don't expect to get that money back to spend on dinner. It's gone. You adjust your lifestyle to live on what remains. You must treat your savings contribution with the same level of seriousness as a tax. It is mandatory. It is non-negotiable. And strangely enough, humans are incredibly adaptable. If you hide that money from yourself, you will figure out how to live on the rest. You won't starve. You'll just stop buying the things that don't actually matter. Now we have to address the trap of the seed. There's a concept called digging up the seed. Imagine you plant a seed in the ground. You water it. You wait a week. You don't see a tree yet, so you dig up the seed to check if it's growing. By doing that, you killed it. This is what you do when you sell your investments to buy a liability. You interrupt the compounding cycle. You kill the momentum. There's a strategy used by the ultra-wealthy called buy, borrow, die. Now, the full version of this is complex and involves massive estates, but the core principle is something you can use today. The principle is simple: never sell your assets. When you sell an asset, you trigger a taxable event. You lose a chunk of your wealth to the government, and worse, you stop the compounding engine. The wealthy do not sell. If they need cash, they borrow against their assets. They use their assets as collateral to get low-interest loans. The loan is not taxable income. They keep the asset keeps growing, and the growth often outpaces the interest rate on the loan. For you, this means shifting your mindset. Your investment account is not a piggy bank for your next car. It is a permanent engine. If you need a car, you cash flow it from your income, or you finance it cheaply, but you do not dig up the seed. You let the tree grow until it is big enough to drop fruit. Only when you are well past the activation point do you start living off the fruit. You never chop down the tree. And this leads us to the final and most difficult requirement: the ability to be bored. Real wealth building is incredibly boring. It is the same action repeated hundreds of times. It is a monthly transfer. It is checking an account and seeing nothing happen for years. We live in a world that sells us excitement: crypto spikes, day trading, get-rich-quick schemes. These are designed to trigger your dopamine, but they are not designed to build wealth. They are designed to transfer wealth from the impatient to the patient. Rule number 18 of the wealth mindset is that slow growth is real growth. Fast money is fragile. It comes quickly and it leaves quickly. Slow money is like a tree root. It forces its way through rock. It anchors you. The patience required to hit $100,000 is an active strategy. It is not passive. It is a war against your own psychology. It is a war against the part of you that wants to look rich now instead of being rich later. So here is your roadmap. First, you build the 3-month wall. You buy your freedom from anxiety. Second, you automate the engine. You strip 20% of your income away before you can touch it, and you feed it into a low-cost index fund that tracks the market. You accept average returns, because average returns, repeated for decades, produce above-average results. Third, you defend the seed. You cut the invisible fees. You optimize your taxes, and you refuse to sell. You refuse to interrupt the compounding. And finally, you wait. You let the silent engine run. One day, you will log into your account and you will see that number, 100,000. And on that day, you will realize that the struggle is over. The boulder is at the top of the hill. You are no longer pushing, you are guiding. The machine is on. The second employee is hired. And for the first time in your life, you are financially free. Not because you never have to work again, but because your money is finally working harder than you are. Start the engine today, not tomorrow. I'll see you in the next video.